Alright, so after an action-packed day of Counter-Strike, Stage 3 is finally over, and we're on to the playoffs of the 2025 Starladder Budapest Major. I finally got a stage correct, but this was easily the toughest major to predict I've ever seen. And before we lock in our pick'ems for the final stage, let's talk about the teams. To start, I was happily proven wrong by the Mongols. Controllers has been outstanding this event, rocking a 1.23 HLTV rating as they cruised to a 3-1 playoff qualification. This man sort of came out of nowhere, surprising everyone, and I believe he's still considered a temporary stand-in, but I think they'd be crazy not to give him a real shot on that team. But this is also an incredible accomplishment for Mara, their coach, and Blitz for having a system that survived losing their star player in Senzu. This still looks like the scrappy Mongols team that everyone's grown to love. Now, obviously, the other team that surprised me the most was FaZe. I did have them going through to the playoffs, but their recovery throughout this tournament seriously needs to be studied. Everyone, including myself, had them counted out after stage 1, and people were calling for Jacob's head, but he downright delivered throughout the remaining stages. Not only was he the best pistol player in the entire event, but he seriously contributed to every FaZe win. And honestly, after going through all 3 stages, I feel like FaZe are probably believing again, and they faced a ton of adversity, and are certainly a team that can take over in front of a crowd. FaZe Magic is somehow back in the playoffs again. Now, after a dominant showing in Stage 2, Na'Vi survived the 2-2 bracket in Stage 3, and honestly, it's not as bad as it sounds. They've lost only 2 series this entire event to the number 1 and number 2 teams in the world. Wonderful and EMA have been in fantastic form, which makes Na'Vi a bit more dangerous than most of us were expecting going into it. Moving on to the home crowd favorites, Mals are looking sharp as expected. They did lose to Spirit in a close series, but they took down the Falcons to go 3-1. Now, I'd love to see Torji make a deep run in front of his home crowd, but I haven't seen anything from Mals that makes me think this time will be any different. They're contenders, but not favorites. And hey, speaking of favorites, let's talk a little bit about Vitality. They of course dropped a best of 1 to FaZe, but completely dominated to the 3-1 slot. And while they're not quite as sharp as they were last season, that doesn't mean they can't go back to back. Both Romps and Zaiwu were top 5 performers in this event, which is pretty scary if you have to play against them on the big stage. I wouldn't be surprised to see them back in the finals again. Now, going into this major, the Falcons were looking like they could be the dark horse to finally get Nico and Monacy a major trophy, but their Stage 3 results have been shaky to say the least. They look nervous, they look like they're crumbling to the pressure already before they even get inside of the arena, and to me, that's not a good sign. Even though they got past G2 in the end to qualify, it's not enough for me to rate them as highly as I would have before seeing this performance. I want to see Nico finally lift one, but I'm just not so sure right now. They have to handle the pressure better. Now, to contrast, Spirit have looked bad for the majority of this season, but Donk looks better than ever. They just slammed their way to a 3-0 playoff qualification with the best rifler of all time at the tip of the spear. If Tanir and Zwei can find their footing, Spirit are, in my opinion, the true dark horse of this major. Donk wants his second, and it's going to take a damn good team to stop him. And honestly, I'm convinced that that team is Furia. Going into this event, their recent results have just screamed major winning form. They have a breakout superstar who's a lock for Rookie of the Year in Maladoy. Yakinder's redemption arc has been amazing, and Fallen has put himself back in the GOAT IGL conversation while also being the best of 5 IGL of all time. It's only fitting that at his peak, once again, Valve introduced best of 5 grand finals to a major for the first time ever. Nothing would make me happier than seeing this Furia team lift the major trophy, and the scary part is, they're the favorites. Now, before we move on to lock in that bracket, I want to thank today's sponsor, SkinsMonkey. For those of you that don't know, SkinsMonkey is an automated CS2 trading site that allows you to select the old skins you don't want anymore and pick out some new ones from the monkey. It's a great way to freshen up that old dusty inventory, and hey, that's not all. They have some amazing filter and selection features, as well as 24/7 live support. If you click the link in the description, you can get a free $5 and a 30% deposit bonus that becomes 35% if you use my code TACTICS on the site. Don't miss out on this offer and check out SkinsMonkey today. Let's get back into the video. Alright, so let's go ahead and wrap it up with my picks. I have no idea how long it's going to take Valve to update the pick'ems in-game, so I'm just going to use the HLTV simulator. But opening quarterfinal matchups, we've got Spirit versus Falcons, Vitality versus the Mongols, Furia versus Na'Vi, and Mals versus FaZe. These are all fantastic matchups. I'm pretty excited for just about every single one of these. Starting with Spirit versus Falcons, even though I was just talking about how I'm not confident in the Falcons, they've played them 3 times this year. Falcons have won all 3. They've gone 6-1 in maps. They've only dropped 1 map to Spirit all year. I'm going to have to give this one to Falcons, even though Spirit have looked better. I think Donk looks strong. I wouldn't be surprised to see Spirit go towards the finals here. This is definitely a matchup that I would have liked to see later on in the playoffs here, but I'm gonna have to give this to Falcons. Vitality versus the Mongols, we're gonna give it to Vitality. I feel like both of these teams aren't quite what they were back in Austin, but Vitality, I'm still gonna give the edge. Now, Furia versus Na'Vi, we're gonna have to give that to Furia. We've already seen the matchup. I think Furia are the strongest team. This is a super favorable playoff matchup for them. And then, of course, we have Malz versus FaZe, which we do have a home crowd advantage, Torji, but FaZe, everyone loves FaZe. The FaZe magic happens on stage. That's a tough one. I think I'm going to give it to Malz. Now, between Falcons and Vitality, I think I'm going to give it to Vitality. I still, I may have leaned Falcons before Stage 3. They just don't look as sharp. They look like they're feeling the pressure already. I can't imagine how difficult a semifinal matchup versus Team Vitality would have to feel for Falcons. Then, of course, I'm going to give this to Furia. I think they match up pretty well against Malz. We have a Vitality Furia grand final, and I'm going to be picking Furia to win the whole thing. And really, those are just the picks I'm going to be locking in. I think the scariest Stage 1 matchup is probably Spirit versus Falcons. I could see that going either way, and if Spirit heat up, I'm serious, I could see Donk lifting that trophy, but overall, I'm just going to have to say it's going to be a Vitality versus Furia grand final and a best of 5, which should hopefully be a banger. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you in the next one.